Okay.
And so we're recording. I'm just going to give some show notes to Lissa. Hi, Lissa. It's Jana, and I am here with Kari. I know I'm going to say your name wrong, but let me try. Schwear.
And that's it. Schwear.
Oh,
Yep.
I got it.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm here today with Kari Schwear, and I'm going to get ready to start my third podcast for today. I'm so excited. So 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to Oh My Health, There Is Hope. I'm your host, Jana Short, and today I'm here with Kari Schwear. Kari has spent most of her professional life helping people find the story they want to tell about the choices they make in their lives. For the past 2 decades, she has helped companies grow by finding new ways to serve clients. Kari believes the best way for a company to expand is to help the clients expand. She founded GrayTonic and questioned the drink. It's called QTD. I like that. In 2018, for professionals like herself that are using alcohol as a coping mechanism for stress, Kari is always on the go, which stems from her favorite place to be, on the racetrack driving Porsches. Yes, the lady is a Porsche racer. Porsche, I would get in trouble from all the people listening right now if I forgot that.
Yes. It's a 2-syllable word. You got it.
Well, welcome, Kari. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, the very first thing I ask our guests to do is to share their story of hope. And I would love it if you shared your story with us today.
Oh my goodness. Well, my story stems back literally as far back as I can remember as age 5 of saying, is this all there is to life? Because if so, this isn't that great. And I remember at 7 having those same thoughts and thinking, I'm 7. I should not be thinking this way. Like I should be out playing with my friends and having, activities to do. And yet I'm sitting on my driveway contemplating, is this all there is to life? So I knew at that point that my life was always going to be a bit different. I sort of had this premonition, if you will, that I might be setting myself up for a very interesting ride, if you will. And that's exactly what happened. I just never felt satisfied. I always felt confused. I had a lot of childhood trauma from sexual abuse and being bullied as a child. And it just had a really rough upbringing. I had great parents, amazing parents, but they divorced. I moved around. I went to 12 different schools in 9 years. It was just a lot for a young person. So that sort of set me up for this belief that, I'm never going to be good enough. I'm not worthy of love, all the things that one might go through as a child, and brought that into my adult life. And in my 30s, I discovered that I really like wine. And at the time I was a food and beverage manager at a country club. And so part of my position was to purchase the wine for the club. And I became obsessed with wine and the varietals and how good it tastes. And of course, I didn't like the $10 bottles of wine. I liked the $30 bottles of wine or more. And I became very well-rounded when it came to knowing a lot about it. And so I would bring my love of wine home with me, meaning I started having a glass of wine after work. Then that turned into 2 glasses of wine. And then we ended up moving 4 states away. And during that time, it was a lot of stress. I had a lot going on in my life. We just moved, my entire family to a different state. I don't have any friends in this new state. And I'm navigating a new job, a new career, a lot of change, right? So one of the highest stresses you can have is when you move and you have these differences happening in your life. And so my drinking became more prevalent at that time. So instead of 2 glasses of wine, I was now up to 3 glasses of wine. And I started to notice that my life wasn't unmanageable, but it was starting to negatively affect me in my day-to-day life. And that's when I realized that I'm probably drinking more than I should, and realized that I needed to do something about it. So I did. And that's when I realized I had my aha moment, and we can go into that if you want, but I had my aha moment and realized that the alcohol was really providing some negativity in my life, that it was affecting the way I was showing up for my family and the way that I felt about myself. And I needed to really work on that. And that's when I hired a coach. I worked with a coach, and that changed my life drastically. And then I just found my passion and found my purpose and found my true inner joy and my bliss. And it's just, it's an ongoing journey. It's not a destination. It's a progression.
I absolutely love your story. And that had you, because of all of that, you created GrayTonic. And I did not know what that was. Honestly, I thought it was a water company, like a new kind of water that looked dirty. I don't know. But I would love for you to tell people why you created that and what that is.
Well, when I first was contemplating my drinking, I knew that I wasn't an alcoholic, but I didn't know what I was. So I went the traditional route of going to AA because that's all I knew. Society has done a really great job of convincing us that if you're drinking more than you probably should, then you're an alcoholic. So I went that route and realized that it wasn't a good fit for me. I didn't need recovery. What I needed was to discover why I felt so unhappy and unfulfilled in my life. It was part of the stresses, which is why I was drinking, but also because I had a lot of other things going on internally that I had been for years. That was part of my story. So it was a combination of, trying to escape, trying to relax, trying to get away, trying to deal with my job I didn't like, all those things. And I went, like I said, went the AA route, left after a couple of months, worked with a coach. At that moment, or after I worked with him rather, it was this light bulb moment for me of, oh my gosh, like I really needed to discover this inner self-love that was never there, that I never could find. And that's what I had been searching for my entire life. I didn't realize that I already possessed that power within me, but I couldn't tap into it. I just didn't know how to. And he showed me how to do that. So as I was walking my dog in the neighborhood, about 2 years after I quit drinking in August of 2016. So this was August 2018. I'm walking my dog and I hear on a podcast a woman talk about her story as a gray area drinker. And I heard that term, gray area drinking, and it was like, aha, it was this incredible moment for me because I truly identified with her story. I came home, I Googled gray area drinking. There was not that much on the internet about it. So I thought, well, let me see if I can understand this more. And when I realized that a gray area drinker is somebody that is drinking more than socially, but they're not an alcoholic, there's so many people that fall into that category. So I thought, oh my gosh, if I can reach other professional men and women just like me that never identified as being an alcoholic, their life was not completely impacted, they didn't have a rock bottom, but they were using alcohol in a way that was helping them cope with their stress, but in turn it was actually making it worse. If I can reach those people for them to raise their hand and say, oh my gosh, that's where I'm at, then I can help those people before they move into a serious addiction such as alcoholism, which alcoholism is a serious addiction. It is when you become physically dependent on the drug. And I was not physically dependent. So I wanted to really reach that, get that message out to reach other people just like me. And I thought, I'm going to start this coaching business. And at that point, I had already been coaching on the side, became a coach, got my certifications, and specialized in a couple modalities, and then launched the business in the end of 2018, and then quit my full-time job last year to do this 100%. But really through that process came Question the Drink. And Question the Drink is a trademarked brand name, and it's part of my movement. And that's really what I'm asking people to do, Jana, is to question their relationship with alcohol. It's not so much about, hey, you should never drink. It's about, how is alcohol working for you in your life? How are you using it? How are you showing up? What kind of mood or thoughts or feelings are you having at the time that you are choosing to drink? And just paying attention to what that looks like for you in your life. So it's not about an abstinence program. It's not about forcing somebody to quit. It's about discovering how alcohol and why alcohol is playing a role in someone's life. So that's really what I focus on, is that portion of what alcohol is.
So then I have a question for you. Coming from a family of alcoholics, and I know that they definitely were not gray area drinkers for sure. But at the end of the day, I am like the first generation who did not have a problem with alcohol or that kind of relationship with alcohol. but I know that there is a place for AA. Absolutely. How
Absolutely is
do
right.
you know the difference? Like, how does, if I say, oh, I drink and sometimes I act like a fool, or sometimes I have way too much, or maybe I'm drinking more during the week than a normal person, whatever that normal might be, and it's causing relationship problems, or literally I blacked out, I don't remember anything, but it was only the one time. How do you know when you're gray area or when you need some serious help?
Yeah, that's a really great question, and I get asked that a lot. So let me just start off by saying, with AA and in recovery programs, I have the most utmost respect for the programs. They work. They've been around forever. Of course, I told you I went to AA. It's a great program for those that need recovery. So there's a lot of, for someone who is a true gray area drinker, they truly are not dependent physically on alcohol. They may be psychologically, of course, because it is a habitual process that we have in our brain. Anytime that we have a habit, or AKA an addiction with something, it is nothing more than a habit that is performed over and over again. It becomes this cyberkinetic loop pattern in our brain that we repeat over and over again. And dopamine, being what it is, creates this strong desire of, hey, remember that feels so good. And then that wiring thought process that we have, that 5:30 equals glass of wine equals steaks on the grill equals relaxation, all those sort of same familiar thoughts that wire together, fire together, of course. And this becomes a habitual process. But for somebody who is physically addicted, meaning they won't be able to go a day or two, or even a couple days without having alcohol, they are truly physically addicted. That is somebody that really does fall into alcoholism. There is this huge shades of gray, a huge spectrum of drinkers that fall into the gray area. So we could be talking about somebody that only has a couple glasses of, or a couple drinks a week, that it is making them feel like they're not being authentic to their family, or they're waking up sluggish in the morning for work, to somebody who is drinking every single day, but has stopped for a month at a time just to prove that they're not alcoholic. But it's also a mindset thing that we're talking about, besides having the physical addiction. And this is kind of my rebuttal, or the problem that I was having with going to recovery or to AA, is to say, hi, my name's Kari and I'm an alcoholic. It becomes this embedded truth in our subconscious of who we are as people. And if there's so much research with scientific data stating that if we, as in the fields, well, I used to be in the medical field, but if you're in the medical field and you tell a patient, this is just the way it is, you're always going to live like this, you have diabetes, you're always going to have diabetes, you'll never get better. Guess what? That patient will never get better. But if you tell a patient, you know what, you have this condition, but I know that we can make this better, and I bet you can beat it, and here's how we're going to do that. And it's the mindset shift too that we really need to focus on. So my message is really about encouragement, is about understanding exactly where you are. So is there, like, going back to your question, is there a test or this fine line of saying, hey, you're a gray area drinker, or no, you're an alcoholic? No, there is not such a thing, other than to say, if you are physically dependent on alcohol, then yes, you are an alcoholic, where you have to have alcohol in order to get through your days. So that really is the biggest delineation between what that means.
I
So
love
it
that
is a
you
gray area.
explained that. And one of the things that Kari and I was speaking about before is that she is a huge supporter of AA, and that it is a great place for people who have an addiction to go. But for the gray area drinkers, and there is gray area, I think, in any kind of addiction, in overeating and drug, there's definitely this gray area where it's not, your body doesn't need it. You're not going to go through withdrawals when you start removing it from your system. And you can do that. Here's the thing though, what do you do for people who've been to AA and have been clean for years, and now they feel like they can fit into that gray area of drinking?
Well, that is a slippery slope. So my biggest question is, and I get asked this a lot too, is, hey, Kari, I haven't been drinking for, a while now. do you think it's safe I can go back to moderation? And the only answer I have is, why would you want to? Why would you even want to test it? Because if they had an addiction or even the habitual process, that does not ever die. It just goes dormant in our brain. So that neural pathway that you created from having that pattern, that repeated pattern of drinking all the time, will awaken back up again. It's almost like a road that, has a detour on it, and you can't use that road anymore. You have to find a new route. So when we quit drinking, or we quit overeating, or you have somebody that loses hundreds of pounds per se, and then they have a new way of eating and so forth, and they have a new way of living. If they go back to their old pattern, they're going to put all that weight back on so quickly. It's the same thing with any type of behavior that we do that is self-sabotaging. Your brain is going to remember that pattern, and it's going to repeat that same activity that you had before. So my only answer to somebody who asked me that question is, could you successfully moderate? Yes, it is possible that you could, but why would you want to? And the reason why I say that is, and I've changed my tune about that recently, is because I do know some people that self-identified as being alcoholic and or addicts that have gone back to moderate successfully. Now, that isn't something that I promote or that I'm in favor of, but I've seen it happen where they've been able to do that. On the flip side, I've seen people think that they can go back to it, and they have, and they've ended up dying. So it's such a big swing of the pendulum on that my answer always is, why would you want to?
So I love that answer, because to me, if you were had an addiction and then you've been clean for several years, and your mind is going through the process of, I wonder if I could be that gray area drinker, that's only something somebody with an addiction would probably start thinking about, right? Getting back to that comfortable space when you're drinking. Because let's face it, I rarely drink. I do have a drink on occasion, but my life, I don't have to have one at a party. I don't have to have one to fit in if everybody else. I'm that one that'll say I'll have soda water and drink that, because I know that I don't need that to feel comfortable in a situation. But I know there's a lot of people that have that social drinking to fit in, to feel comfortable, to feel like, I'm relaxed enough that I can be in this crowd of strangers and talk or relate to them.
And that's the biggest holdback for a lot of people, Jana, is this fear of not fitting in or not having a social life if they are to look at their relationship with alcohol. It is the number one fear for everyone. And it's so understandably so, because society really has shown us that it is very acceptable to drink. It is legal, of course. But it's not only acceptable, it's almost expected in a lot of networking events and in celebratory type events such as weddings and networking events and birthdays. You just expect to see alcohol there. So somebody who is watching their relationship with alcohol and they do want to moderate, or they have decided to eliminate alcohol, this is the biggest fear going into those situations. So I have some advice for that, if I can share, which is really having mental preparedness before you even go into those situations. In other words, knowing where you're going to be, knowing who's going to be there, what the atmosphere might look like, just trying to formulate what that might appear in your head, visualizing, seeing that beforehand, and then having a plan. So knowing that you're going to, let's say, a networking event, they may not have a non-alcoholic beer. They may not have a mocktail that's specified as non-alcoholic. So having a plan in place. I can have a club soda and cranberry. I can have, a sparkling water with a twist of lime. Like, already having in your mind what it is that you're going to drink. And then the second thing, or the third thing, is to execute on that plan. So just follow what your plan was. If you set the intention that this is what you're going to do, follow through with it. And then the last thing is to have an exit strategy if you feel like you want to get out of there. Also have a plan the next morning, like actually have a date at the gym or have an activity that you want to get up early. So it gives you some momentum to, stay the course and not drink. So you have something exciting to look forward to. And then lastly, I would say, if they follow all that, is to go home and journal how they really felt. How was it for them in that moment? How did they feel? What were the thoughts and the feelings coming up for them? Were they feeling threatened? Were they feeling judged? What were some of the comments or inner chatter in our minds that we're thinking in those moments, and really paying attention to that, because that's really where the core is. Because here's a big secret. It's the news flash of the century. Nobody cares if you're drinking or not drinking. We get it in our head that everybody's paying attention to what we're doing. And I promise you, nobody cares if you decide not to drink. And the tide is starting to shift, which I'm so happy about. People are starting to awaken on what alcohol is actually doing to their bodies. And I'm not on a crusade against alcohol. Alcohol will always be a part of our society, most likely, just like smoking is still part of our society. But there's been a major shift with smoking cigarettes. I see that happening. It will happen over time, where alcohol will become one of these things where people are really taking a second look at the relationship with alcohol. Again, it comes back to questioning the drink. Why is it that you are drinking? What is the main purpose? What is it actually doing for you? It's just getting really honest with yourself. And there's no judgment. There's no judgment if somebody wants to drink or if they don't want to drink. It's a personalized relationship, and it's something that needs to be looked at internally and made a decision at that point for that person. But there's no judgment if you don't want to drink.
So I don't know if everybody caught that, but what Kari just shared with you is one of the biggest mindset tricks we use. She created a perfect blueprint for your brain to success, to maneuver that party in a very successful way. You plan ahead, you tell your brain, this is what we're doing. We got this. And you go through with this blueprint in your brain. Your brain doesn't know any different. That's just what you've told it to do. So that's how it's going to go through there. And so that is a beautiful tip for all of us. One of the other things that you brought up was that the habits don't change, even though they lay dormant. I worked with a girl who weighed 400 pounds. She had gastric bypass surgery and got down to 180. Within 2 years, she was back above 400 pounds. She physically could not eat for over a year, like large amounts, but she, even though her habits were dormant, because for a year she was only allowed to eat, well, not allowed, she could only fit small meals in. She managed to move that slowly back to her habit, because she fixed her stomach temporarily, but she never worked on the mindset. Why was she constantly ravenous? Why was she putting food in her body to fill that hole or emptiness or whatever space? And until she worked on that, she was never able to change that habit, even though they physically changed it for her for a long period of time. It's the same with drinking or any other bad habit that we have. Like right now, I'm trying to give up sugar.
Well, that's a hard one.
I've done it before for, I think my longest was 6 months. And then I slowly, I'll just have a little bit because I haven't had any in so long. And the next thing, I'm a full-blown sugaraholic again, sugaraholic. But yes, it's like a blueprint for our brain. And so I will let you guys know in 6 months how I'm doing with that sugar, but I have cut it completely out unless it's in a natural form, like a piece of fruit or something.
Well, the other thing too, this kind of coincides with that, is there's, we can look at things as choices, right? We have choices. And for gray area drinkers, this is a big delineation between alcoholism and a gray area drinker. Is for gray area drinkers, it truly is a choice to drink. It's a choice to drink, right? You're not physically dependent, so you have a choice. And we can just decide. We can just decide that we're not going to have sugar. We can just decide that we're not going to have alcohol. We can just decide that we're going to go back to the gym and work out. We get those choices. But there's something that when I work with my clients, it's really about knowing circumstances or facts, whatever word you want to use. I like circumstances, but it could be looked as facts versus choices. So whenever we're in a situation, we can look at it and say, is this something that is factual or a circumstance that's preventing me to want to do this? Or do I have a choice in the situation? And, that kind of goes back to the serenity prayer, right? Which is fabulous to know, the things that we can and cannot change and accept that. So it really is as simple as that, is knowing that we have choices that we can make, and we just get to decide, which is amazing. Because you're right, your brain doesn't know any different. It doesn't know imagination from truth, right? So we can just tell it what to do. Our brains are so much smarter than we even can imagine, and we just can tell it what to do. Like you said, I love that.
So right now the control freak in me is jumping up and down screaming, I am in control. So
I
I
know,
like your
right?
little control freak flag away, because you do have control over
Yeah.
the choices you make. You can say, but no, they gave me a weird look, or I knew that this is what they expected of me. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter. You still have control. You have control over doing what it is that you want to do for yourself. And you can say no. And if there is judgment, which shame on them if there is, but if there is judgment, that's their baggage, not yours.
Yes, yes. And ironically, that is the name of my 7-day email video series that I have everyone enter before they even get on a call with me. It is called Decide. And Decide is actually an acronym that, there's a step process for it. But I called it Decide for a reason, because it truly is about making a decision, and then we just get to decide what we want. And I love that word. There's so much truth behind it. And I love that we have that opportunity. We have choices all around us every day. What we do with our time. We all have the same amount of time, which is this finite resource that we have, but we all have the same amount. So we have a choice on how we're going to work our day, or how we're going to enjoy our day. And we get to decide on those things.
I
And
love
it's
it.
just, yeah.
I love that you're kind of changing the way people label themselves too, because one of the hardest things for you was getting up, saying your name and saying, I am an alcoholic, when you didn't feel that inside, and
That's
wearing
right.
that label throughout your life. And here, look what you're doing without the label. And so I think it's really important that we remove labels, because they hinder us. Like, even I always wondered if they did some kind of study where you had cancer and they didn't tell you, and they started helping you heal. If you didn't have that fear, all that panic on what that means to most cancer patients, how successful you would be with treatment, just moving through, not knowing what it was you were fighting. Because our minds hear that. They hear you have 6 months to live. And when 5 months hits, it's thinking, well, you don't have much time. You're leaving this world, right? And you start preparing, your body starts preparing to shut down,
That's right.
because that's what you were told. So I'm not big on labels. And I love that you've removed the labels and given people back their choices, and say, if you want to drink, that's you made the choice, go ahead. And if
Yes.
you choose not to, that's again your choice. It's okay.
Yes. And there is this power in that. There's a freedom and in control with that. And it feels so much better. So it's just a difference. And here's another example of that. I can't drink versus I'm choosing not to. I mean, just hearing those two statements, you know what feels better for you. It's like, I'm choosing not to. Oh, heck yeah, I'm in control.
Right.
Versus I can't drink, so I just love, really talking about the nuance, what we say to ourselves, the inner chatter, like I said, really staying away from any negativity, staying away from people that drain your energy, and protecting yourself as you're going through, when someone is questioning the drink. It's important to have this self-investment time of really getting centered and pouring some self-attention and self-investment with time, sometimes resources, but definitely a commitment to self, and really having a story that they want to be able to share with others on why they wanted to make a shift out of the gray area. So for me, it's, when I talk about the gray area, yes, gray area drinking is what we're talking about, but when I go back to my story at age 5 and again at age 7, going, really, is this all there is to life? It's truly about this living in the gray. It's about not having this deep fulfillment or joy that we all can have and we all possess. And part of my story was having to go through all this trauma, go through all the stress that we all go through. But my journey that led me to this work that I get to do now, that I'm so honored and privileged that I get to do, was just part of my way of getting out of the gray area of life, let alone being in the gray area of drinking. So it's kind of a full circle thing for me, which is why, so GrayTonic, just we'll close that loop. Obviously gray is for gray area, but tonic, if you look the word up, besides it meaning, a medicinal drink, it means restorative, energizer, a boost, pick me up, strengthener. So I like to look at myself as the tonic for somebody that's in the gray. So that's how the name came to be.
I love it. Where can people find you?
At graytonic.com, it's GRAY, and all social media channels, of course. But yeah, and Question the Drink. If you were to put in questionthedrink.com, it routes to GrayTonic, and also grayareadrinking.com. They all route to GrayTonic.
Kari, you are amazing. I love that you're going out there and letting people realize that they have the power to do whatever it is they want to do in their lives. It's their choice. So I love that you're teaching that. And you guys can get all of her information in the show notes if you want to follow her. And I would totally connect with this woman. Not even if you don't have a drinking problem, because here's the thing. She's talking about gray areas being in your life everywhere. It's not white, it's not black. You're stuck somewhere in the middle. And you want to move forward, right? You don't want to go back, but you want to get forward, but you're stuck in the middle. So I would definitely start following her. If for nothing else, check out some of the Porsches she's driving.
Oh yeah, the fun times. And Question the Drink is a private Facebook group, and we talk more about clean living and lifestyle choices in there. So it's not just alcohol; it's an all-encompassing place for people just to feel really good about life. So it's a fun place to be.
I love it. We need to get t-shirts made, right?
Yeah, actually, funny. I just ordered on Vistaprint. I got my own mask. It has a GrayTonic, and I got Question the Drink on this one.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
Listen, if I got to wear a mask, I might as well promote the brand. So
I think mine says Chanel because I don't buy it anymore. So I can wear a mask that says it.
That's hilarious. That's awesome. I love it.
Well, thank you so much for being here today. I just love you so much. And I think you're doing amazing things. And I'm going to be looking for your book coming out soon because I know
Yes, thank you. Yeah, The Successful Mind is coming out. It'll be out probably in 3 weeks or so.
I'm so excited. Be sure, you know what? Be sure to send us a link so that I can put it in the notes.
Okay, I will. Thanks, Jana, so much.
Thank you, Kari.